role she took that no one else wanted. It wasn't prestigious, it wasn't strategic, and it definitely wasn't popular. When opportunities appear, most people evaluate them by visibility, title, trajectory, how the move will look to others. In modern careers, avoiding the wrong role feels just as important as choosing the right one. But sometimes, the opportunity everyone ignores becomes the one that changes everything. To understand why she accepted this role, we have to look at the moment it appeared. The team was struggling. Turnover was high. Expectations were unclear. The work was messy, unstructured, and quietly avoided. When the position opened, interest was minimal. Most saw a risk without reward. She saw something different, not because she was fearless, but because she was paying attention. The role touched problems no one wanted to own, gaps between teams, processes that didn't scale, decisions that stalled because responsibility was fragmented. It wasn't glamorous work. It was unresolved work. At the time, her career felt steady but flat. She was capable, trusted, and underutilized. Growth had slowed, not from lack of effort, but from lack of challenge. The obvious moves offered comfort, not expansion, and that made this overlooked role harder to dismiss. Colleagues warned her quietly. Taking it wouldn't help her resume. The work was invisible. Success wouldn't be obvious. Failure would be. From the outside, it looked like a step sideways, or worse, backward. But she wasn't chasing optics. She recognized that no one avoids work that matters without reason. The role sat at the intersection of friction and necessity. If it worked, the impact would be systemic. If it failed, the lessons would be unavoidable. Either way, growth was guaranteed. Accepting it felt risky. Declining it felt safe. And for the first time in a long while, she realized safety wasn't what her career needed. So she stepped into the role everyone else had passed over, not knowing that this decision would quietly reposition her entire trajectory. The reality of the role hit immediately. There was no handover, no clear mandate, no definition of success. She inherited confusion, stakeholders with conflicting expectations, processes that existed only in fragments. Everyone wanted improvement, but no one agreed on priority. The work lived in gray areas others avoided because accountability was unclear. At first, progress was invisible. Small fixes went unnoticed. Improvements blended into the background. When things worked, it looked normal. When they didn't, attention arrived quickly. The imbalance tested her patience. Effort wasn't rewarded with recognition. It was rewarded with more problems. The conflict grew internally. She questioned whether she had miscalculated, whether taking the role had stalled her visibility instead of expanding it. Peers advanced into cleaner positions. Their wins were easier to explain. Hers were buried inside systems few people understood. But something else was happening beneath the surface. She was learning the organization in full, how decisions actually moved, where power lived versus where it appeared, which problems mattered and which were noise. The messiness forced her to see connections others missed because they stayed in defined lanes. She stopped waiting for permission. There was no one to ask. She began setting direction by necessity, making trade-offs, owning outcomes without a blueprint. The role demanded judgment instead of execution, and that sharpened her quickly. Still, doubt lingered, because invisible work feels risky, and progress without applause tests motivation. She wondered how long she could stay in a role that gave more experience than credit. How long before the lack of recognition became a liability? The role was building capability, but not reputation. And that tension reached a breaking point, because eventually, every overlooked role forces the same question. Is the learning enough, or does visibility matter more? The answer would determine whether this decision became a detour, or the foundation of something far bigger. The turning point came quietly, without announcement. Systems began holding. Problems that once escalated stopped appearing. Teams aligned without meetings multiplying. Decisions moved faster because ownership was clear. The chaos that defined the role began dissolving into structure. And ironically, that made her work even less visible. When things run smoothly, effort disappears. This was the conflict she hadn't anticipated. The better she became at the role, the easier it was for others to forget it had ever been broken. Success looked like absence, and absence rarely earns recognition. Doubt resurfaced sharply. She questioned whether she had trapped herself in invisibility, whether the skills she was building would translate elsewhere, whether she was being responsible or simply overlooked. The role everyone avoided was teaching her everything, but saying very little about her value. Then perspective shifted. She noticed who began coming to her when problems crossed boundaries, who asked for her input before decisions were finalized, who relied on her judgment when uncertainty appeared. Influence was forming quietly, without a title announcing it. She wasn't just fixing systems anymore. She was shaping how people worked. Leadership began referencing outcomes she had enabled, not always by name, but by effect. Processes held, teams trusted, friction reduced. The organization functioned differently because of choices she had made months earlier. The realization landed heavily. Visibility doesn't always come from spotlight. Sometimes it comes from indispensability. The role no one wanted had positioned her at the center of complexity. And complexity is where real leverage forms. She understood the whole system now, not just her piece of it. And that understanding changed how she was perceived, even when it wasn't announced. The conflict resolved internally before it resolved externally. She stopped chasing recognition. She focused on durability. And durability has a way of revealing itself eventually, because when something breaks again, and it always does, the person who knows how it actually works becomes impossible to ignore. And she was becoming that person, whether she intended to or not. Recognition arrived later than she expected, but it arrived with weight. When new initiatives stalled, her name surfaced naturally. When leaders needed someone who understood dependencies instead of surfaces, they turned to her. The role that once felt invisible had made her indispensable, not because she demanded attention, but because she understood the system end to end. The job no one wanted didn't elevate her title overnight. It elevated her leverage. She moved forward with credibility, rooted in impact, not optics. The experience translated cleanly because it wasn't narrow, it was foundational. She could step into new roles with confidence because she had already navigated complexity without instruction. Looking back, the risk wasn't taking the overlooked role. The risk would have been avoiding it. By choosing work others ignored, she positioned herself where learning was unavoidable and influence was earned quietly. The career growth that followed wasn't linear, but it was durable, built on judgment, not perception. Her story challenges a familiar instinct that only visible roles matter, that clean paths are safer. In reality, the roles everyone avoids often sit closest to the problems that shape organizations and careers. Sometimes the opportunity that changes everything doesn't look like opportunity at all. It looks like responsibility without applause. And those who accept it don't just advance. They redefine where value actually lives. Sometimes the smallest shift in perspective becomes the beginning of a new future. The role